On today's show.
We could just delete the intros, I think.
Your uncle let you play Leisure Suit Larry.
I stare at progress bars.
The anticipation
Far
of a
too
progress bar. Oh.
But
Dude, I think it'd be good at some point for us to talk about our most frustrating progress bars.
all this and more on tonight's episode.
Welcome everyone to 3 Idiots and a Games Console, your friendly chat about all things gaming, where we talk about what we love about gaming and how we make time for it as parents and people with jobs and stuff, and where we share our stories about games we've enjoyed through the years. This week we'll be taking a look back through the years, discussing the evolution of gaming that we've seen over the last 30 plus years, all the way up to today. My name's Joe, I'll be your host this week. Joining me as normal are two good friends of mine, Mark and Torrin. Guys, please introduce yourself.
I insist, Mark, you go first.
No, sir, don't be too polite.
Hello, everybody. You may have recognized me in the previous podcast as the host. This time, we've changed roles. But I'm Torrin, your friendly neighborhood streamer.
We can just delete the pauses, right?
We could just delete the intros, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to start again, Torrin? So let me do that. My name's Joe, and I'll be your host.
That's how I'm going to do. That is how I'm going to do it.
Brilliant.
That's fine. And I'm Mark. Hello.
Thanks, guys. That was great. As always, it's nice to speak to you both. As no surprise following Mark's glowing review of Steam Deck last week, this episode will not be sponsored by Steam Deck. Thanks, Mark. Torrin, as you excellently hosted our first episode of 3 Idiots and a Games Console last week, let's start with you. Also, as you're the youngest of us, what is your earliest gaming memory?
Earliest gaming memory. Well, as I mentioned on the last episode, the first memory I have is playing Windows 95's Warcraft 2, although it might have been an MS-DOS game at the time. I'm not too sure, but my dad bought it. It was back when the real-time strategy game had just started to really set foot in the PC gaming space, and my dad would have created custom maps in the game for me, and I was only 4 at the time, so I was pretty terrible at the game. But nevertheless, the love was there from the old man. Other than that, I think that the first proper game that I could say that was my own was World Cup '98, also for the PC. Got it in 1998, and it's just one of those EA football games. But I loved the crap out of that when I was younger. And yeah, those are pretty much my first memories. Very different to most people. Was brought up a PC gamer first rather than a console. In fact, I didn't really even get a console until I was like 13, 14, well into the PlayStation 2 life cycle. All my friends had the consoles. I would go and play on their systems, and in the name of friendship, obviously. But yeah, those are my memories.
Mark, what about you, man?
So, that's a really tough one because I have absolutely no idea. I feel like it could either have been something like an arcade experience or... So there's a few different things. It could have been the arcade. It could have been my dad's Atari, which I spoke about last week. Or it could have been something like, playing Doom at my uncle's house or something like that. But everything was kind of golden in that time. I mean, games were being played just around the time that my memory sort of was coming into fruition. I'm fairly certain that like it would have been something on PC, if I could take a guess.
I can remember 1985. I think it was
A very good year.
1985. Going to my mate's house and going, "Can we play that game? Can we play that game?" And he'd go, "Oh, I really don't want to," and I'd make him. I can't remember his name, and he'd have to put a cassette into a machine and play the cassette for the whole length of the cassette to load the game, and then you would be a little ship going up and down it's a little dot going up and down on 2 lines.
Is that the ZX Spectrum?
I think it was.
Yeah, my dad had one of them. He showed me when went over there for Christmas. You had all these random cassettes. I was like, this is how games were played? How does this even work?
Yeah, and you had to wait for the cassette to play before you could play the game.
So you just reminded me of very early memories I did have that have just like been re-unlocked, right? So playing the original Game Boy at Harrods in London, playing Paperboy on PC. I would have been really, really young, about 5 years old or younger, playing this game called Paperboy. You literally just ride your bike up and down the street, chucking papers at, like, lobbing them at people's houses.
Did they have a version of that on the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Potentially, but
I'm getting vague memories of that. Like you'd throw paper and you'd smash people's windows with a newspaper.
I think it could be the same game. But as a young kid, it seemed like the best thing ever. And there was another game. It was like I think it was like a Scooby Doo, but like I don't know if you ever played this game Pitfall. It was like a Pitfall Scooby Doo game. This might just be my brain getting blurred. Oh, and Zool actually. One of my uncles had Zool on PC.
Isn't that just a character out of Ghostbusters?
Yeah. No, but I mean, it is, but not in that game. It's like some weird ninja guy, and it's not a particularly amazing game. It's a platformer. But yeah, all those early games were kind of naff.
Yeah.
Although my uncle would let me play, one of my other uncles would let me play the good stuff like Doom, Wolfenstein, etc.
When did that come out? Because Wolfenstein was Doom. That was PC, and that was Windows 95. That was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Got to be between 91 and 95, right? I'd like to think.
I'm pretty sure they were DOS games to begin with. On floppy
yeah. Oh,
disk.
yeah, they were. Yeah. They were. Yeah.
I forget I'm like 10 years older than both of you.
It makes all the difference because, I didn't grow up with the original Doom on the PC. The first Doom that I suppose I would have played that was similar to that would have been Doom 64, which is like many, many years since the original release, which says a lot about how good Doom was. They were still making ports of it 5, 6, 7 years down the line, but that was my first experience playing Doom.
Damn. I feel sorry for you because that was a really bad Doom.
Oh.
Even because there was like you said, there were so many different iterations of Doom. You had Doom on, like you said, on DOS, and if you didn't have like a sound card to play out of speakers, it would play PC sounds, which is something that I don't think anyone being, that's a teenager today even knows what the hell that means. But it was still fun. But as soon as I played it on like a PC that had a sound card, it was like, oh my god, this is incredible. It was one of the first games I think that really made me appreciate like gaming in general. And as I say, later on when I was about 7, I got the SNES and that was it for me. But I was hooked on games. But before that, it was definitely things like Doom and Heretic, Rise of the Triads, all the games that my parents didn't know my uncle was letting me play. Leisure Suit Larry as well.
Your uncle let you play Leisure Suit Larry?
Yeah, we completed them all. It was amazing. I didn't understand what was going on half the time, but it was brilliant.
That explains so much. I remember playing. I think I told the story last week about my dad bringing home the Nintendo Entertainment System when we lived in America, about 1986 or 87 this was, and playing Super Mario Brothers, and on that particular game cartridge it had Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and you had the light gun which you could then shoot the ducks. That was
nice.
So cool.
Nice.
Such a fun experience.
I think I only ever went to one kid's house back in the day that had one of those guns. Most people, I'm fairly certain they were expensive because I don't remember anyone really having one except for this one kid who had everything.
There's always that one kid who has everything, and
yes,
certainly wasn't me. Did you ever play with a Virtual Boy?
Yep. I can't remember who had it, but I did know someone who had that. It might have been one of my cousins. But yeah, they had a Virtual Boy. It wasn't very good.
It's kind of meme worthy now.
Yeah, like the Power Glove or something.
And they made them into films, early Nintendo films.
And those films are better than the merchandise.
So what you're saying is you want a Steam Deck movie.
Yeah, I think it'd be the sort of movie where you're in the cinema and then the like film reel just catches fire halfway through, and then you just get a refund.
Or somebody spliced some porn into it or something like that.
Yeah, like Fight Club.
Like Fight Club. So what was after that? What was the first game that really blew your mind? Like you just ambling through life, and somebody puts this game in front of you, and it just blows your mind and made you sit up and really take notice. Mark, you mentioned one that you thought was brilliant, but is there another memory that you've got that just really stands out as something that was an amazing gaming experience when you were growing up?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there was so many in those early days when games either came in those CD cases or cardboard boxes, right? And I think the real golden period for me was when the N64 launched, and you had GoldenEye. Well, maybe not launched, but like after by the time I got an N64, you had GoldenEye, Mario 64, and Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. For me, those three games were just all three of them were incredible, and I've spent so much time. I wouldn't even be able to let you know how many hours I've spent on all three of those games. And there's a special place in my heart. I still get a warm, like, lovey feeling if I think about those games and playing them, even though if I were to play them right now, I wouldn't get the same experience, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I saw a YouTube video the other day, because I looked it up, of somebody who'd done a full game capture of Rebel Assault 2, which is a Star Wars game. And that, for me, when I got that on PC when I was younger, I was like, this is amazing. What a fantastic... I just played that so many times. I've watched the whole thing on YouTube.
That's the great thing about like YouTube now, is that if you think of an old game that you played and like you don't have it anymore, or you can't be bothered to buy it and play it, someone has done a full walkthrough, right? You can just go on YouTube, search for that game, type in full playthrough, and you get all that nostalgia just for free. It's something that I actually love quite a lot, you know?
That sounds like an awesome segue for me to plug my YouTube channel.
And today's sponsor is Joe's YouTube channel.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sponsoring our own podcast. Torin, what about you?
I mean, I would like to say that when I grew up with gaming, like, for me, it was the golden age of gaming. We were at a real transitional period where 3D graphics were coming into the home. Every year there was just a vast improvements on what was being made, and quantum leaps in some cases. One of the things that is a little bit disheartening in the current generation is that games don't necessarily look or feel that different compared to the games that were being released 10 years ago, except for frame rate. But back when I was growing up in the late 90s into the early 2000s, every year felt like a revolution. So there are so many games that hold just such strong emotional attachment to me. But off the top of my head, and I'm going to give some example or some more diverse lineup, I suppose, because there are so many special ones. But I remember Pokemon Red and Blue when that came out on the Game Boy. That was my first introduction into RPGs as we know them, really, turn-based RPGs, and those games are so special to me that I still got them in their original cartridge with original Game Boy Color that I will occasionally play them on, as well as I've got their remakes throughout the years. And then other games such as Knights of the Old Republic, when that came out in, I think it was 2003, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Again, probably the best Western RPG that's ever been made, in my opinion, and just the scope of it was just huge, especially for the time when everything was voice acted. The story was grand. It was just a moment in time when storytelling and just, at least when it came to Western RPGs, just suddenly rose and elevated into the standard that we know it today. So those two particular ones stand out in my mind. Another one was probably WCW versus NWO Revenge on the N64. A classic wrestling game that I remember being shown by my friend, and we spent hours playing local multiplayer. And I think just the fact that you could play local multiplayer so much easy with friends back in the late 90s, early 2000s makes this time period very much more special compared to the stuff that we have now where everything is disconnected and, well, not disconnected, very much connected, but disconnected from just like the emotional attachment of just trying to sabotage your friend next to you as he's playing a game just to get a healthy competitive advantage. But yeah, definitely those three games sort of stand out as the moments that I sort of fell in love with gaming more so. Moments that are emotionally with me, and probably I don't get as frequent these days due to either lack of time or just the quality of the game just not being up to snuff.
Who did you play as in WCW versus NWO?
I was Sting, man.
That was I.
Can't beat Sting. Woo!
He was the best. That was a great game, because it was a bit like, what was the No Mercy, right? WWF No Mercy.
Yeah, that was the 2 sequels later.
But it felt like WCW vs NWO, even though it was like almost like the blueprint for those games. It had more to offer. It felt a little bit more rich, like there was more going on, and I don't know, it just seemed to be a little bit more fun. I think the music was less repetitive and all that kind of stuff, or maybe it was just the fact that Sting was in it, I don't know.
For me, it just captured the show and the pay-per-views. It captured wrestling at that time period perfectly.
Definitely.
And in a way that predecessor games never did. The first good wrestling game, I would say.
So I was reminded of two things while you were talking there, Torin. One, the show Quantum Leap. Shout out to Quantum Leap, great show.
Is that with Scott Bakula in it?
Such a good show. Yeah.
Shout out to Ziggy. But yeah, the second thing was before the N64, and I feel ashamed that I didn't think of this straight away, but Street Fighter 2 Turbo was like the game. All throughout school, everyone had it. It was massively competitive. Whenever you went around someone's house, like, even the kids that had 100 games, no one cared because everyone was just playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And then the first time I saw it was in an arcade. I was in Cyprus actually, and I just my parents were like, no, you can't play on that thing. But I was so fascinated. And then when it came out on consoles, man, it just blew up so hard. And yeah, obviously, I love fighting games a lot, but that was a real special time for fighting games and for me, well before the N64 came out. So I just wanted to backtrack a little bit and put in a mention for arguably one of the best fighting games ever made. The Super Nintendo version, by the way, not the Mega Drive version, because the sound is awful.
Is that another hardware criticism you've got?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I had a Super Nintendo. I didn't have a Mega Drive, right? But I appreciate what the Mega Drive had that the Super Nintendo didn't, and it's usually things like, releases that SNES didn't have. I didn't care about the controller differences. I didn't care about the fact that I couldn't get Sonic or Cool Spot or whatever. And they did genuinely have some better games on the Mega Drive, even if you had a dual release. But Street Fighter 2 Turbo was not one of those games. The sound was just way better on the Super Nintendo. Otherwise, they're virtually identical.
People went crazy over Sonic the Hedgehog. It was such a popular game in those years.
Oh yeah, man! And the cartoon as well.
Yeah, friends of mine had the Mega Drive, and they were constantly, let's put Sonic on and collect those round rings.
I think it was. I think it was because for the time that sense of speed and motion that Sonic brought was way ahead of what a 2D side scroller usually presented in terms of speed and fluency.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it was a visual treat in that sense.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean, like, out of those platformers, I mean, you had some amazing competition when it came to platformers in those days, right? So there were so many good platformers, but then when Donkey Kong Country came out, and they used like some kind of hybrid 2D, 3D animation technique, and I don't even know how it works. Like that was another mind blowing moment for me as a kid, because it was like, oh, this game is like Mario, it's like I can jump and I jump on people's heads and then they fly away or whatever, but I can like smash a box and a rhino will come out of it and I can plow through about 12 beavers with my rhino horn. And yeah, I mean, like it was such an amazing game, and the puzzles, the secrets, the music, like everything about it was awesome, and the whole trilogy was brilliant. So another incredible platformer. I mean, Sonic was great, right? So Mario, Sonic, Turrican, whatever, they're all great games, but again, like it just when you were mentioning it, I just steered my brain straight to Donkey Kong, like arguably like the best platform series ever made. Did you guys play Donkey Kong Country?
I never did.
No way.
I played the I think it was a Wii remake or a 3DS remake?
Yeah.
I've played those ones. I've not actually played the original. I've never owned a NES or a Super Nintendo or a Mega Drive or anything like that. They were just a bit before my time.
Have you got a Switch?
I have got a Switch.
If you sign up to Nintendo Online, you get to play them for free. And I'll be honest, like I'm jealous of the both of you because that's probably what I would do. I would go and play those games.
But for me, and maybe this is just a systemic problem of gaming as a whole, the subscription service that Nintendo offer, it's not as trustworthy for me as I like to own physical copies of games, especially classics, and play them on original hardware.
I mean, I have those games, but I mean, look, Torin, if
I'll come round, like, I'll come round, and we'll play it together on your.
Look, I've got a few spaces on my family account, right? I'll just add you to that. I have an active online subscription now, right? I'll add you to my family, and then you can just go away and play Donkey Kong, because I feel like this is a game everyone needs to play.
Does that mean I need to go out and buy a Nintendo Switch now so that I can sign up to your family account and play Donkey Kong?
Absolutely, 100%. Or, buy another console that has Donkey Kong compatibility. I mean, I dare say, how do we say this without getting into trouble? Online somewhere, you'll be able to.
If you have to ask that question, if you have to ask that question, Mark, it's probably not. It's probably not safe.
Just pirate it. No, I'm kidding.
There are many ways, but here at the Free Idiots and Games Console, we always encourage our users to buy official products, official merchandise.
Yes,
play it the way it was meant to be played.
Using the affiliate links below.
Don't pirate games, guys. It's really bad.
And those who do, I will be sending you those DVD intros of pirating. You know, on the beginning of DVDs, they would have that thing that's saying pirating is bad and all that stuff. And so you wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal house keys.
Keep going, Tori. Keep going, man.
Piracy is a crime. Be better.
Be better. Do better. Anyway, moving swiftly.
Wait. Before you move on, I just want to point out, because, like, this is my one time to say this. The irony of that advert being on the beginning of every DVD, right? You wouldn't steal this, you wouldn't steal that. Every single goddamn DVD, you could not skip that message.
That is true.
So they stole your time. Imagine how much time you spent watching that same thing over and over again, right? probably days worth of time. Like, seriously. You wouldn't steal you stole my time. You stole my time.
You were going to steal their DVD and copyright. How has your relationship evolved over the years with gaming? Because obviously we've talked about a lot of things, a lot of early memories about gaming, and a lot of sort of memories from our teens around gaming and that sort of thing. But how has your relationship with gaming evolved over your life?
Tori, you want to take it?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question. I'm just trying to think the best way of articulating the answer. But for me, the passion and love for this art form is only grown as time goes on. I think for me, because I work in an area of film and video, like video games themselves are like a storytelling device that I very much enjoy playing. Story-based games in particular. I know we mentioned The Witcher 3 a lot in the last episode, but like games which have very powerful narratives and I can get behind quite easily. And gameplay wise, I'm not the type of person to play Dark Souls or any of the games which make you want to pull your hair out if you die too many times. I very much like to enjoy and play casually these days. Very much different to when I was younger, where I would play it as hard as I could, just for the challenge. But these days, I'm very much wanting to enjoy my experiences with a game. And that's the only thing that's really changed between when I was younger and now is just time. I'm a lot more selective on what games I want to play. Because I don't have a lot of time in the world, as you guys also have that same problem. Hence why we're doing this podcast. But I think, yeah, realistically speaking, the passion and love is still there. And yeah, I think I've rambled on that, but you get me.
I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, for me, man, I mean, it's evolved. My tastes have kind of evolved with the technology, so maybe that's not true, because I still love old platformers. I still think that the graphical style of anything that came out on the SNES that was well made enough, even down to Disney games, some of them anyway, like Mickey Mouse's what was that adventure? It starts off in like Steamboat Willie. Anyway, not important, but like anything from like, again, Super Mario, Donkey Kong, whatever. These games are so infinitely playable, even now, which is why I can still recommend you guys to play them and it not be a weird thing to do. They still look great. But as technology has evolved, obviously, I remember when Deus Ex came out, like I can't remember if it was Deus Ex the original or what, but it was on PC and you could walk around, you could pick up bodies and hide them and all this kind of stuff. It was still an RPG shooter, just like the more modern version of or iteration of the game. It didn't look as good, but it was really cool, and there was just constant innovations, right, all the way through the 90s and 2000s. I mean, it still is. An innovative space, not as much so, I think, as that time, because just technology was just, exponentially getting better, and you could have much more memory and storage and whatever else. So, the hardware was becoming like beefed up very, very, very quickly. So yeah, I mean, there were, things were moving. But yeah, the PC space obviously was so different to the console space, whereas now the divide is not really that big. So I guess it also depended on what you had access to and who you knew who had access to something that you could, maybe play on here and there. So yeah, I was very lucky, I had uncles with PCs and stuff, and I always had like a SNES, and then I had like friends that had, there was always that guy that had everything, as we were saying earlier. But I had access to most things. And I just loved all of it, I'd be honest, like there's only one kind of, there's a few genres I don't like. One of them is football games. I mean, sports games in general, really, other than maybe like racing. But even then, I wouldn't really choose to, play a racing game. I think the only sort of sportsy games that I would actually like to play, other than some racing games, would be like the Olympics, just because they're funny. and you can get competitive with your friends, like how you were talking about with WCW.
I remember one. I had really bad internet connection, and this is when I was a grown up. I was an adult, and I'd got. I'm not going to name the company because it's not fair, but the company was terrible internet connection, and I had to download the update for Gran Turismo 4, I think it was. Oh yeah, I'm going to play. I can't wait. I was going through a phase where I was loving car racing games, and on Gran Turismo, I remember just literally sitting there. I was in a car that was way too fast on an oval track, and I thought, well, I'll just hold the accelerator down for 2 hours so I can win this race and get the points, so I can upgrade my other car so I can get better in the game. And I was really excited about this new release of Gran Turismo that had come out. And it said, right, you've got to download the update before you can play, or download the data files before you can play it. And my internet was so slow that it took me 8 hours to download the update. And then I had to install it. That took ages. Installed it, sat down to play it, went into the car racing mode, went into first-person view, because that's the way I like to play it. And they had blank, almost not completely blanked out, but made really dark the interior simulation of the car. And I hated it so much that I played the game for 5 minutes and turned it off, and I've never played it again.
Wow. I mean,
you know what? You were saying about the internet company, you wouldn't name them, but I feel like during the time of Gran Turismo, which one was it again? Sorry, 4, or was it 2?
No, this has got to be like 5. It's got to be 5. Was it on
Maybe
PlayStation 3?
PlayStation 3, yeah, it was PlayStation 3.
It was either 5 or 6.
So most people's internet packages at that time weren't that good anyway, right? Like, I feel like that is something that was a massive pain point for all gamers around the world for a long time. Unless, obviously, depending on regions. I mean, in England, it wasn't till sort of maybe around the year 2000 where broadband was introduced, and even then, it wasn't exactly like it was lightning speeds, right?
Gosh, I remember when people were just amazed that you could have a phone call and be on the internet at the same time.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Those were the days.
I mean,
the sound of a modem kicking in.
we touched upon it a little bit earlier, but the multiplayer in the early days, like consoles being local co-op, but for me playing PC, my dad would have 2 PCs, and we'd have to link up because the internet was not capable of allowing wireless play on Quake 3 at the time we were playing. So we had to physically link our 2 PCs together in 2 different rooms, and there was very fond memories. But jump forward 6 years, and I'm playing Halo 3 on Xbox Live with my friend who's like 2 cities away from me, and the internet's stable, albeit no one else could really use it around the house, but, I'm not going to, needs must and all that. But even for me, that was like a quantum leap because, as you say, the dial-up back in the days was only like 6 years before, but we had already moved on to online multiplayer.
Yeah, my generation is still excited by progress bars.
I stare at progress bars.
The anticipation of a progress bar. Oh.
But
dude, I think it'd be good at some point for us to talk about our most frustrating progress bars. Maybe we'll save that to another episode. But I definitely have it. Maybe I'm like special, but I have a few of most frustrating progress bars of all time.
I can name mine now.
Okay, good. We'll save them.
I need to get it out so I can remember it later.
I wanted to. I think that's a really good subject to bring up, right? Local area network play versus when like multiplayer online became stable enough that it was enjoyable. I think that's a really good conversation to have.
That's the social side of gaming, which I think is another episode that we've got.
Okay, fair enough. We'll save that too.
Yeah.
But I just want to say for now, I did like the LAN, right? I did like the local area network parties, and it was fun to do all of that while the internet kind of didn't really exist in where we lived. You
had to take your giant TV over to your neighbour's house, along with the console, your big CRT TV.
Yeah, did I talk about that last episode? I can't remember because that's exactly what I used to do. But I literally used to carry my TV 20-minute walk to my friend's house like every weekend. Did I mention this last time? Or
No, I don't remember.
okay, I'll save all the details for whatever episode's coming up with the social side of gaming. But yeah, I literally used to do that.
But just to add to your comment, Joe, about Gran Turismo, Gran Turismo had a very important part in my gaming history, so to speak. Mainly because I remember for context, we all used to work at at the same company, a big Japanese company. We won't name it. You might guess.
Sony.
PlayStation.
Okay, fine. We all worked for Sony at one point, and I remember there was some key tech demos that were happening in our building, and I went down there, and one of them had set up a racing simulator with PlayStation VR with a copy of Gran Turismo Sport, and I legit remember being
I remember it well.
I was so blown away by the VR experience, as well as the feeling of being connected to a car through a physical steering simulation wheel. That inspired me to get my really expensive sim racing cockpit that I have next to me.
Yeah, you've got the whole rig now.
I've got the whole rig. I've got a direct drive motor that would power conveyor belt, a curve monitor, a VR headset, some really expensive pedals. The whole system costs like $3,000 to $4,000.
We should go to Torrin's house and do some gaming.
I'm actually I don't think that's a joke. Like, I legit want to try this now. Especially, have you got the VR headset and everything?
Yeah, I've got the VR headset. It's not connected to anything currently, but I can tell you that one experience that we had at that Sony Tech demo changed racing games for me completely, because all of a sudden, yes, I've spent a lot of money, but I spend 80% of my time when I'm playing games in that environment, just because it feels very real, very immersive, and immersion's part of the enjoyment is as well in video games, being immersed into a world. So I suppose, yes, this is where sort of technology sort of changed with the introduction of VR and more powerful peripherals that you can attach to your systems and stuff like this, because this system I've got currently can still work on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, which is incredible. It's worth more than the console itself. but you can play it and bring Gran Turismo 7 to bring it more to life rather than playing it on a gamepad. I just thought I would interject that there, because
I feel like doing that again would probably get me back into car racing games, because I used to love car racing games. They were my go-to for a long time, and then I completely fell out of love with them over this Gran Turismo thing, because I was like, Gran Turismo's removed the interior detail of the car. I have no interest in playing it anymore, and I completely stopped playing it.
There's some good racing games out there at the moment. What's the Forza Motorsport and stuff like this? I think there's some good stuff out there, and it'd be a shame for you to not play just because of this one.
Well, no, I agree. But I mean, what happened was it made room for other stuff for me to play, and I got more into my Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that, and then got more into third person actions and RPGs and that kind of thing. And I just haven't had the time or the inclination to go back into the car racing world. But I know if I was to visit Torrin's house and sit in his gaming cavern that he's got, it would probably be very exciting for a few hours.
Well, the invitation's there. We could go to the pub afterwards.
Sounds good to me. I think what you brought up though, Torrin, is actually really on topic. So in terms of what we're talking about, like the evolution of gaming and these kind of milestones, it's to me is very interesting, because like VR is the one thing you probably all of us wanted as children. Wanted something really immersive and something where you felt like you were actually in the game, where you could do whatever you wanted, but then you take the headset off, boom, I'm back to being myself, and I can go to school and whatever, right? But when VR actually comes out, now I don't know about you guys, like Torrin, it sounds like you bought a VR headset, but like I actually didn't really. I borrowed someone's VR. I got it all out of my system, and I don't think it's actually changed my attitude towards how I play games and what I play as much as it felt like it would do back in like the 90s when it kind of wasn't a thing. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but like for me, it wasn't really the revolution that I expected it to be.
I still feel the temptation towards it because I used to, well, I jumped on that VR experience that Torrin talked about when we worked at Sony, and I had a good go at it, but I was nowhere near as good at it as Torrin was. I remember Torrin being there like for most of the day. Like, where's Torrin? Oh, he's down on that experience again. Oh, okay. when are they putting that thing away again? Because I'm sure he's supposed to be doing some work. But it was either that or Paul, wasn't it?
Extended product review.
Yeah, extended product review. But I have a feeling that if I let myself, VR would probably take over my gaming experience, and I want to do it. I want to get a VR headset and I want to have that experience. But I've also got Grace, like I said last week, who sits next to me and helps me game, and she's like, if you're immersed and I'm not immersed, then that doesn't really include her and that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, yeah. Okay. And that's kept me away from putting my credit card out there and going, I'm just going to...
Yeah.
Which I might secretly do and just leave it in my shed, but
I think
it's... Sorry, you go.
I think for it comes down to a particularly use case scenario for VR. Like, so when I got my Oculus Rift, I had one specific use for it, and that was to combine it with my racing simulator, because at that point you put on the headset, you're in a virtual representation of a car, and thus it helps gameplay wise, because you can see distant. You have a 3D depth of distance, which is absolutely critical in a racing simulator for spotting breakpoints, markers, and being aware of your spatial awareness. So for that sort of sense, it added that extra layer of immersion that I was craving. However, for other VR games, it's very for it's half-baked experiences, I would say, in most cases. And I've never really been too sold about it outside of a few niche games that are built specifically for it. But even though those sort of games are very small in scope and play and replayability, it seems more like a fad. Like you're no way you're going to be playing like a first-person shooter with a VR headset on. It would just make you feel sick, and it would probably detract from the actual experience, because you're not running. Someone's going to be much quicker at shooting you on a 2D screen. So it very much depends on the use case, of the scenario of that the game developer makes for it.
Yeah, and I think also the different like VR headsets, like the PlayStation 1, like same thing for me. The first time I played it was also at the Sony office. I did the Bank Heist demo. I don't know if you guys played this one, but I thought it was pretty good. And I was very impressed with it at the time. But like I remember playing like my old colleagues, I think he had like Oculus Rift, and the controllers like allowed you to do like a pincer movement with your index fingers as well as like a full grip with the whole hand. So it gave you that extra layer of control, and it was really good. Like if you were like teabagging someone and you're like, you could like pincer like wherever you want as opposed to your whole hand just gripping it. Just made for a much more funny experience, but yeah, I'll be honest, like none of them at all have really, because I guess what I just wanted, right? I'm not the biggest of Star Wars fans, especially as of late, but what I really wanted from these virtual reality experiences was just the ability to have like a lightsaber fight. I think that was probably the thing that I wanted the most, because I knew, especially with Sony, like they're I can't remember, they're like magic wands, with the bubble on the top, right? I was like, this
the discount Wii.
Yeah, but it was actually for the first. So the original Wii controller was really crap. Like if you played golf, like you could do like a very short, pronounced, fast range of motion, and it'd be like, right, I'm going to swing the hardest in like a golf club and get like, get it as far on the pitch as possible. Whereas with the PlayStation 1, you had to do a literal full range of motion to achieve the same thing. Like it was more accurate to like real life. And I saw massive potential in that, and there were some really good games that like utilized it, even before VR, like when it was just there for motion controls. But I still don't know. I'm guessing there is a game now that there must be a lightsaber based game. Like okay, good.
There's two. There's Vader Immortal and its sequel. There's also a rhythm game that uses I'm not going to say it uses a lightsaber, but it uses the motion that you would use to swing a lightsaber for beats. So
is that when you've got those
Beat Saber
things coming at you and you have to
Beat Saber? That's the game.
them away?
Okay, and I mean, are they any good? I mean, Beat Saber looks amazing, but are the Star Wars games any good?
I've not played them personally because I think they're solely on. Actually, no, they are on Steam, or I haven't played it personally, so I can't really comment.
Okay. But I would like to know though. I'm interested because that might be the thing that brings me back. Brings me back to VR.
But I think when VR, like I can imagine horror games in virtual reality being much better than a 2D screen, simply because you're in an environment. I think when
terrifying though, isn't it? Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too much for me, man.
VR games are best when they're trying to immerse you in like a tone or a feeling. So rather than complex gameplay, I find.
Sure.
It's cool.
Yeah, because like you said, like, it's not like you put in the headset and it's like Elon Musk Neuralink, like you're actually in like Afghanistan in Call of Duty and you're like shooting people and you're running around sweating. It's like, there's a limit to what you can really achieve with VR, maybe for now, but it's like the people that do it the best understand those limitations and kind of work around them, right?
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, like when we were younger, like VR, we were assuming we were going to do a lot more with VR than what we actually got because of these limitations.
So do you think games have changed much over the years? I think we've kind of talked about that, really, haven't we?
See, yes,
yeah,
yes, but no.
Well, we could take certain genres. I mean, like if you take adventure games, they've almost died a death, but there has been a somewhat resurgence, like with the with I guess games like the new, obviously the newest Monkey Island, which kind of plays on the fact that it is a bit of a haggard genre. Like it's not really been able to evolve, like because it is what it is, and people just don't really like them anymore. Not in the kind of quantity maybe that people used to. So talking about Leisure Suit Larry, for example, do you see any new Leisure Suit Larry games now? Like, of course not.
No, but there is the bundle on the Switch that keeps getting discounted to about £5 from like 60.
Do you know what? Yeah,
which includes all three games.
No. There isn't. No, you know what? There is a new Leisure Suit. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. There are actually 2 new Leisure Suit Larry games out. It's like Wet Dreams Never Die or something like this. And then the second one. So yeah, no, I'm wrong. No, so I guess that's part of the resurgence. Then yeah, you got Leisure Suit Larry, you got Monkey Island made a comeback.
I mean, you could sort of throw Telltale games into there as well. They've got a new game coming out, The Expanse. Some former Telltale employees have made a Star Trek adventure game, which I've bought, and it's pretty. It's a great little game is the best way to put it. It's not a AAA or anything like that, but it's not selling itself as a AAA in terms of its price, and it's good for what it is. You are right that they haven't really changed, but I feel that they've become more specialized and more special to those who appreciate them. Still, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've sort of. I guess if I'm understanding right, they've sort of tried to, like for the Telltale games, right? They're all very similar games, right, to each other. Telltale have kind of figured out what they want to make, and they've they've carried on sort of just doing that thing. Monkey Island have like produced quite innovative controls so that you can play it on console, right? I actually think it's the best adventure game experience on a console out there. The very latest release, whereas Leisure Suit Larry was very clunky on console. I think it probably plays a lot better on PC. They didn't really put in the work to kind of figure out that transition. But I think that with that new Monkey Island game gives me hope that like that puzzle games could make some kind of a resurgence with a little bit more innovation, because it's been a long time since they were like really, really popular. But there's still a special part in every old school gamer's heart that kind of wishes that they were all as good as that. And this is the thing is I haven't even played it yet. I just played a little bit of it, and I was really happy with it. I thought it was brilliant. It made me want to play it. But then inevitably I went and played other things instead with my time. I was talking about Lost Judgment, the second Judgment game, One Piece, etc., etc. So it got totally like put to the back of the pile. And when I think about it, it's just it's just down to the fact that they take time, and they take time to complete, and it's an investment, and you have to think. And at the end of the day, when you're knackered and the kid needs to go to bed or whatever, blah blah blah, you just kind of just want, like, for me, I want to chill out. Playing a game like Lost Judgment and the expansion at which I'm on at the moment, the Kaito Files, you just run around, you're just beating people up, you're just doing those kind of things. It's not as taxing as kind of using your brain. So where was I going with that? So talking about the evolution of kind of gaming, right? So like, well, that's one example, but shooting games evolved drastically at one period. Now they're effectively all following the same mechanic. Adventure games have probably had the most innovation, maybe. Indie games are constantly innovating because obviously they're doing things on a shoestring budget. And then you got obviously VR space, etc. So I think, like, to be honest, like, I feel like there's been a bit of a plateau in several areas, but definitely not in all of them.
So where do you guys think gaming's going to be in the next 10 to 20 years? Like, if you were to put your minds into the future, where do you think gaming is going? And do you think it's still going to be gaming in 10, 20 years? In 10 years, I'm going to be in my 50s. In 20 years, I'm going to be in my 60s. And I still think I'm going to be sat there with my PlayStation controller, or however that looks in that time, because we'll probably be on the PlayStation 7, maybe.
We're gonna get disabilities as we get older, right? It's an inevitability, right? Our eyesight is going to get worse, and I still don't think any of that is going to stop us from having our taste change. Our tastes are not going to change. We're going to always be playing games. Just like that Netflix show, Dad of Light, right, which is about Final Fantasy. This kid like reconnects with his father through like getting in Final Fantasy, and they play together online, but he doesn't even know that he's the character online. Like, they play he's playing and he's interacting with him in secret, But like the dad's playing Final Fantasy, and he's like 70 or some shit. I don't know, but like I'm fairly certain everyone that enjoys playing games will want to play games up until probably the day that they die, as long as we're able to do so. So I mean, that's that part of the question, in my opinion. Obviously, Torin, I'm sure you have a thought on it, but
it's a very tough question. It's very tough to predict. As you said, Mark, eyesight's going to degrade, reaction times are going to slip. You're inevitably just going to get worse at gaming. So, in that sense, maybe in the future I will start going further away from competitive games and picking games that are more casual and not more casual, but more laid back in their approach. I'm still a huge fan of RPGs in general, and the mechanics that they can have. As we mentioned in the last one, I'm playing a lot of Fire Emblem at the moment, which is completely unique in terms of its gameplay speed and mechanics, which I'm finding is quite nice just to relax to, rather than just booting up a shooter game or a third-person action RPG well, not stress, but the intensity of it can wear me out over time. So actually, I've been playing a lot more of those games for a longer period of time than I would play any other game because of the intensity levels are down. But I guess in the future, obviously, family might have family, who knows? And then at that point, gaming changes dramatically for me into probably what you guys are going through, potentially.
See, I'm finding more time for it now than I used to when I was younger. And I think that's just because when I was younger, I had other things that I was, doing other stuff. But I always used to really enjoy my gaming when I was younger. But now I'm older. I rely on my gaming so much more for mental health and for switching off and all the positive sides of gaming that it brings. That I actually do more gaming now, I think, as an adult, even with kids. But yeah, I think it's going to get more immersive. I think the points around immersion, and Mark, you made a little comment about Elon Musk and perhaps having a chip in the brain and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 20 years' time that's looking like a reality, or even going through some sort of testing and stuff. But can you imagine if you went through the surgery, have the chip in the brain, so that you can have a fully immersive gaming experience?
Yeah, I think. Well, I definitely think VR is gonna get better. They're gonna come up with more innovative ways of making that a more fun experience and probably a more accessible experience. Like the first Sony headset had like 1 million cables coming out of it, and you felt like something out of a Japanese anime from the 80s. And then the next iteration of that, which as far as I'm aware, come out recently, and it only has like the one wire, right?
The sensors are built into the actual headset this time, rather than as extra wide connectors, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a really good innovation, I think, from them. That's good.
And I just think it's going to just continue to get better. Obviously, there are other competitors on the market. I think Hive and Oculus Rift and whatnot. But I think it will continue to get better. But like, I think the thing that has always been talked about for the last maybe 10, 15 years is like mobile gaming taking over, but I honestly think that is not going to be the future. I think people are always going to want consoles or PCs to play games. I hate to say it, but I think the Steam Deck is leading the way on a lot of this stuff. And I think Steam OS, when that's available for people to sort of download on, I mean, it might even be available now, but if people can download that on other devices, there's just unlimited potential for what you can do.
I'll really miss it if companies decide to push forward with sort of large multiplayer games and not have any single player kind of story driven narratives, because that's what I love.
Same.
Yeah, same. I did love. I liked multiplayer games. And if we're talking about the social in another episode, I won't go into it. But I think that mobile gaming has kind of like been proven to not be a successor to what we know as gaming now. And also the things like Google did that Stadia. These kind of like software as a service games where you use like a virtual computer, virtual gaming or whatever. They've died. Apple Arcade and things like this, and mobile games and stuff, that they've not prospered really.
I wouldn't say the whole cloud-based computer service has died per se. I just think that
Stadia did. I mean, I'm not saying
Stadia did, but the concept is very much still there with PlayStation and Xbox. I just think that market recognition on that. Brand exposure and trust.
Yeah, I mean, Xbox have done a very good job of have what was it?
Game
Xbox
Pass as well as
Game
Cloud Pass are integrated into the same system.
Yeah, so I think there's certain people that like really enjoy like those packages, and they actually just they don't own any games. They just use those services all the time. It's probably people like us, people that have kids and lives and whatever, and they pick things up and they put it down and that's it, right? So I get that there is benefit to it, but I still think like the big money is probably
how we can connect to the virtual world. That's the future.
Because school kids are going to be the biggest market, right? Like like with music, where do, because I learned this through watching like an interview with like the Wu-Tang Clan or something. They were like, look, up to the age of 15, that's the zone of people buying like music, right? After that, people are not as heavily invested in purchasing music, and I would imagine it to be similar with like, in terms of like target market for games, like who's out there like spending tons of money buying game after game after game. Like for me, like I see a Steam sale and I'm like, oh, I might buy this. I might have something even on my wish list that goes on sale and I still don't buy it. Like I'm like, whatever. I ain't got time for these games anyway, right?
I don't know. Like, I think that's the opposite for gaming, because
you think the adults are the ones.
Because like with Game Pass and stuff, you can just get that for £10 and your kid can have access to games. If anything, it's cheaper for not buying games for kids and just getting Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. Well, when you're adults and you have more disposable income, you can be more selective with the games that you want to buy physically. I know, Joe,
but when kids want games, like they will hound you. Like do you remember like when you wanted a game as a kid? Like I don't know about you, but I would not stop harassing my parents, even though they could. Like sometimes it's just like, look, I don't have any money, right? It's like, give me that game. You wouldn't stop until somehow, some way, you either stopped harassing because it was like months down the line and you actually realized, oh, I'm not getting that game, or they got you the game, right? So it's like just constant harassment, and people with disposable income are just going to give in, because kids, if a kid wants a game, they're gonna try and do anything to get it. Oh, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you. I won't do all my homework for a year, whatever, blah blah blah, right? Like you'll give in to you. Like I imagine myself like give it into my kids in the future. As long if they harass me enough, hopefully they never listen to me saying that. But
I plan to leverage exactly that. Dude, you want this thing? Go and mow the lawn. Dude, you want this thing? Go and trim the hedge. Dude, you want this thing? Make sure you clean up afterwards.
and see, and that's the thing. It's like kids know exactly what games are coming out. They know exactly what they want, and they want like I wanted loads and loads of games as a kid. And like, as an adult now, I'm like, right, I know these games are coming out over the next year or so. And I want to get all of them, and I'm probably not. There's no way I can play all of them, right? So it's like, all right, which ones are the best ones? I might just buy that one and that one out of the 10 that I'd like, right? It's like, but up to the age of 15, like, or maybe even older, like you've got so much free time, like to play games. Even up to like university, like the first year of university or whatever, you're probably playing tons of games, right? And then spending probably your university grant buying those games.
I remember when I first started university and I got my student overdraft, the first thing I did was go and buy myself a PlayStation.
Case in hand, is that the right?
Case in point.
Case in point.
Case in point. Anyway, guys, I think we've got to wrap it up there because we do. But thank you for a very enjoyable chat. I feel like I want to go and play my PlayStation as we speak, but I've just got to go and clean the kitchen and get the kids to bed and give her a foot rub, and then maybe I'll be able to squeeze in 40 minutes or so.
Good luck, Joe.
Thanks.
I'm going to go and buy a game physically.
Yeah, then physically plug it in, wait for it to install, and then maybe I can play something. If you enjoyed this, please give us a follow and don't forget to share and let us know if you're a dad or mum who enjoys gaming and how you find the time for it. Check out our other channels in the description and follow and subscribe there too if you like it. We'll appreciate it. In next week's episode, we'll be talking about gaming with kids and all sort of fun and games that you can have with that. Join us there next time and we'll get into it.
Bye.